When we did this example, adding vectors, we said A equals 50 angle 30, B equals 40 angle 120. I want to add them. And we graph them, we say, well, there's the answer. Well, how do we know this is right? Just because I said this is how we do them, that doesn't mean I need to prove that's really correct. So let's redo that problem and see if we're close to the correct answer. So A equals 50 angle 30, and B equals what? 40 angle 120. And I want to find A plus B. We'll see actually if we get that answer. We got early when we did it by hand, 62.5 angle 68. Remember that one. We'll see if we got it right. Now, the way I did that with physics with my students last month, I said, you know what? I'm going to make a table because the table reminds you what you have to do. I took them and I created what I call a table there. I'm extending the last line just a little bit longer. I'm going to put the labels. In this box, I'm going to write the vectors. In this box, I'm going to find the x component of each vector. In case you forgot, the x component is equal to what? R times what? Cosine theta, just a reminder. Looking for a different marker, but and this one is the y component. And how do you find the y component? R times sine theta. How many vectors do I have? I have two vectors. I have vector A, which is 50 angle 30 degrees. And I have vector B, which is 40 angle 120. I'm going to find the x component for vector A. That's what AX means, the x component of vector A. That's 50 cosine 30 degrees. And let me get my calculator ready. 50 cosine 30 degrees. 43.3. The y component of vector A, that's 50 sine 30 degrees. That is 25.0. Let's do the other vector, vector B. Let me find the x component of vector B, which is 40 cosine 120. and the calculus tells me it's negative 20.0. The y value of vector B, it's 40 sine 120. And that's 34.6. Now, I'm going to take the two x values and add them, and the two y values and add them. So the x values, I'm going to call the result in the x direction, is going to be 43.3 minus the 20.0 23.3. The result in the y direction is going to be what? 25 plus 34.6. Is it 59.6? So now you have the answer in the x direction, you get the answer in the y direction. Where's my summary sheet I did early today? I said if you know, where is it? If you know the x and y component, you can find r and you can find theta. R will be what? The square root of x squared plus y squared. And theta will be the inverse tangent of y over x. And make sure to add 180 degrees if x component is negative. Is my x component negative? No? So I'm not going to be adding 180 degrees. So notice my r here, the result, is going to be the square root of what? The x component squared and the y component squared. 23.3 squared plus 59.6 squared. You do the math, you get 64. 63.99, 64. Theta is the inverse tangent of the y value over the x value. That's going to be the inverse tangent. And what's the y value? 59.6. And what's the x value? 23.3. And I got 68.6 degrees. Those are the correct answers. Yes?
It's like an equation that's about like velocity and all that.
Which one?
Velocity.
What about it?
Nobody uses equations for that. So
Well, it depends what kind of velocity. If you have x and y component for it, yes.
okay,
Notice when I did that problem graphically, I said somewhere around 63, 62 and a half, and it's 68 degrees. And what did we get? 64 and 68.6 degrees. Now what about if you have three vectors? A plus B minus, A minus B plus C. Where was that? We did that one. Let me find that one. Notice the process for these, if you want to write the steps down. Here's the process. The first thing I did is what? I wrote the vectors. Step number 1, write the vectors. That sounds silly, write the vectors. What do you mean by write the vectors? What I mean by that, make sure that the angle is with respect to the positive x-axis. Sometimes the problem is deceiving. They say a plane is going north or 30 degrees west of north. That doesn't help me. I need to measure it from the positive x-axis. Step number 2, find the x and y component of each vector. Again, the x component is equal to r times cosine theta. The y component's what? R times sine theta. When you're done with all of them, what did we do next? We added all the x component, all the y components. Add all the x and y components. I call those actually Rx and Ry, the result in the x, the result in y. That's why I call them. And step number 4, to get R, we do the square root of R sub x squared plus R sub y squared. And to get theta, we do the inverse tangent of Ry over Rx. And we always add 180 degrees when Rx is negative, because that means you're in the second or third quadrant. Those really the steps I used. So let's take another example here. And we did that, a minus b plus c, and we'll add it using components. So here we go. We have a equals what? 100 angle 50. B equals 70 angle 35. I mean B, yeah. And C equals, did I say B or C? And C equals 90 angle 150. I want to find A minus B plus C. We did this problem early today using picture graph. And we came up with an answer of 110 angle 132. We'll see if we are right or not. Remember that one? Some of you got 113, 118, 108. So we'll see who is actually the closest one. The closest one to the answer gets 5 points deducted off his test or her test. Deducted, not added. We don't give any rewards. We deduct points here. Huh? The farthest he loses 20 points. So there's no win here. So the first layer is going to say the label in it. I'm going to have 3 vectors, so I'm going to have 3 boxes there. One for each vector. I wish I'm always this neat. I am not really. But the people on camera, as I said, it makes it easy to follow the stuff if you try to be neat. I get a lot of negative and positive feedback, so I'll try to listen once in a while. Doesn't mean I always listen, but I'll try. There we go. We said the top box is going to be the labels. That's the vector. I'm going to put all the vectors here. This is the x component, which equal to r times cosine theta. And this is the y component, which equal to what? R times sine theta. Let me write my vectors. Vector A, 100 angle 50. This is write the vectors first. There's A. B is 70 angle 35. And C equals what? 90 angle 150. Let's look at the first vector. This is AX in the x direction, x component. It's 100 cosine 50. And again, if we did this one right, if I push the right button, that's 64.3. The y value, 100 sine of 50. And that's 76.6. Now let's do the other vector. The x value, 70 cosine 35. 57.3. by in the y direction, 70 sine 35. 40.2. And let's look at the last one. C in the x direction, 90 cosine 150, which is negative 77.9. And the y value, 90 sine of 150. And that'll be what? 45. Now remember here, you adding A minus B plus C. A minus B plus C. So the resultant X is going to be the 64.3 minus, because you're subtracting B, 57.3 plus negative 77.9. A minus B plus C. Let's see what this number, 64.3 minus 57.3 minus 77.9. The x value is negative 70.9. The result in the y direction is going to be 76.6 minus b. B is 40.2 plus c, which is 45. $76.6 minus 40.2 plus the 45, 81.4. Does everyone see why I'm subtracting the b value? Because the problem says a minus b plus c. You got to subtract b. What did I write? The steps. Where did they go? We said write the vectors, find the x and y component for each one, add all the x's and y's. We did that. Once you have them, you can find r and theta. So let me find r using this step here. It's the square root of r sub x squared plus r sub y squared. Negative 70.9 squared. Make sure you put them in parentheses, otherwise your calculator will do it wrong. So the square root, parentheses, another set of parentheses, unless I use a plus, because when you take a negative value and you square it, that's a plus. $107.94. Tran, what'd you get? 108? 108. 107.94, so it's 108. And theta, let me look here. It says it's the inverse tangent of y over x, and make sure you add what? 180 if r sub x is negative. Is our r sub x negative? So we need to add 180 of r sub y over r sub x plus 180 degrees. R sub y is 81.4 over negative 70.9, and add the 180. Second 10, 81.4 divided by negative 70.9. And when you get your answer, add to it 180 degrees. And it says 131 degrees. So it's 108 angle 131, your answer. Let's see, what was it? I can't remember. Uh-oh. I got 110. It's 108. I got 132. They're saying is what? 131. So graphically, I was almost right on the money. Just a hair off. Less than 1% off. Usually we lay you up to 5% error in the lab. So I'm 1% error here. So the correct answer is 108 angle 131 degrees when you add A minus B plus C. And that's how we add them graphically. I mean, not graphically, mathematically using components or trig